Hello, ladies and gentlemen. We are back this week with the continuation of our series for this month. We left off talking about the different ways that religion can show up. So, tied in with that, okay, is the belief as well that religious people have that everything that they teach and believe and understand about God and the scriptures is correct. Now, here's why this is problematic. We are not 100% correct all the time. If you believe as a human being that the way you see things, the way you understand things about anything is 100% accurate and correct, there's a problem. Because we live in an imperfect world. We live in a fallen world. We are not God, right? So we don't know everything. The only person that can boast of that is God, because God has no degree of a doubt about being right, because he's omniscient. He knows it all. We as human beings, on the other hand, we cannot boast of that. That applies to every area of life, especially when it comes to spiritual things. But religious people think that they are always right. And that's just not true. So here's the thing. Of course, when you believe something to be true, you should have confidence in what you believe. Otherwise, we're just going to be going around doubting everything and, being confused about everything. And that doesn't get us anywhere, right? And that doesn't produce results. So we should have a degree of confidence in the things that we believe to be true. But at the same time, you've always got to leave that little bit of room to be able to assess and reassess your paradigms or your beliefs, because at the back of your mind, humility tells you that you cannot always be right about everything. And how you know this is, think about your journey growing up. All the things you believed as a kid, do you still believe all of those same things now? The answer to that is most likely no. Why? Because you've gained many of the things you believed when you were young. You've gained new information that has adjusted, tweaked, changed, even completely thrown away some beliefs altogether and regain new ones, because we are constantly gaining information. We don't know it all. And because we don't know it all, some of our beliefs right now are based on the things that we know right now. And as we get to know more things, those beliefs will adjust and will change and will tweak. That's just the fact of life. Thinking that everything you believe right now is 100% accurate is false. And that is the problem that religious people have. They think that every single interpretation that they have of God and of the scriptures is 100% right, not realizing that they may have blind spots. In fact, I want to say they definitely have blind spots, because every single one of us has a blind spot. Every single one of us, including myself, has a blind spot. And so we don't take note of everything. We miss out things. We misinterpret things. We make mistakes. We're human, and that's okay. Another thing about religious people is conformity. Religious people and religious environment strive for one thing, and that is conformity. And many times they like to interpret conformity as unity. Those two things could not be further apart from each other. Conformity is not the same thing as unity. So Paul talks about us being of one mind, okay? And many times, religious groups will use that passage to say and to think and to believe that basically means everybody needs to think exactly the same way, needs to act exactly the same way, needs to talk exactly the same way, needs to behave exactly the same way. And that is not what Paul meant by that. What Paul meant by that is that we should have the same goal. we should have the same purpose. We should have the same drive. We should have the same motivation. We should have the same spark. You know, we should have the same love for God. We should have the same desire to work together. It doesn't mean we should think exactly the same way. It doesn't mean we should have exactly the same opinion about everything. And here's why. Because it's impossible. Ladies and gentlemen, can I break it to you that no two people believe exactly the same thing about anything? Not even identical twins. If you look into that, you'll find out identical twins can be so different from each other. How much more two people from different backgrounds, from different families, from different upbringings, coming together in the same church, in the same congregation, and you expect them to believe exactly the same thing? It's not possible. Now, if it appears as if they're believing exactly the same thing, can I break it to you again that somebody is pretending? Somebody is acting as if they are falling in line, whereas what's going on in their head is completely different from how they're acting on the outside. And that is what so-called conformity leads to in religious groups. It leads to pretense. People pretending to toe the line, whereas in their minds, in their hearts, they do not conform to what is actually going on. They are unhappy about many things that are going on, but they pretend to toe the line. Why? Because they don't want to be punished. Because usually in those groups as well, it is a high, well, they would call it discipline, but really it is a high retribution environment, which means that if you go against the rule or the overarching law or the unspoken code of behavior, there are serious consequences attached to it. And so people out of fear will act as if they are completely in line with and happy with everything that's going on. But they are not. That is the danger of conformity. And I believe it's Miles Monroe that says conformity is one of the biggest problems of humanity. Okay, it's one of the biggest problems that we have as human beings, trying to conform to a certain way, a certain behavior, rather than allowing God to bring out all the uniqueness that God has in you. Now, I'm not talking about being rebellious. Some people are going to think that, oh, you know, if you don't conform, that means you're trying to rebel against everything. No, a rebellious spirit is completely different. But you need to be able to have the strength of will to be able to do what God wants you to do. And guess what? Many times, what God wants you to do is going to go against the grain. What God wants you to do is going to be different from what everybody else is doing. It's going to be different. What God wants you to do, is going to ruffle some feathers. It is. You just need to look through scriptures and you'll see people after people, prophets after teachers who had to do what other people did not want, who had to say what other people did not want to hear because they had to obey God. And to be able to do that, you must be somebody who does not conform just because this is the way it is done here and you cannot question it. You must not question it. If you're in that type of environment, you're in a religious environment.